Let's talk about another place where something you and I are heavily involved in, you mentioned before, which was after Saddam invaded Kuwait. There's one of those issues where I actually think as much as any in the 4 years where the people mattered and the president mattered. Because the first cabinet meeting, shall we say, was not a consensus about what to do. I think that's a generous way of putting it. And there's very little about, what it taught me was there's very little about history that's inevitable. And the people and what they bring to the table actually end up writing a lot of the history. And this seemed to me as good an example as any when he said this will not stand. That was another case, shall I say, where he set the policy and the government had to catch up to him.
Yeah, and I think the interesting piece of it, particularly in light of the subsequent history, was his determination not just to throw Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait, but to know when to stop. And I think, you know, I've read a lot of American history, and I can't recall a single instance in which before the first shot was fired, the president actually signed a document saying what our war aims were. And I chaired the deputies committee that debated this, and Richard was deeply involved. And we basically debated 3 goals. Throw the Iraqis out of Kuwait, eliminate the Republican Guard as an offensive threat, and we decided those in like 10 minutes. And then we spent a couple of weeks debating regime change. Do we go to Baghdad? Do we try and bring about regime change? And we ultimately recommended to the principals and to the president that we not do that because we didn't know what it would require and we couldn't guarantee success. It would require occupying at least half, if not more, of Iraq. We would end up having to repair a lot of the damage we'd just done. And so the recommendation was not to do that. And I actually think, Richard, you drafted the piece of paper that the president signed that said our war aims were the first 2 things. And what made it so different from all the other wars since World War II that we fought was we accomplished the objective and we stopped.